Yes, people, it's me, Mr. Nesta, and I just want to do a quick video about the flood, the devastating flood in Texas, the Guadalupe River. The night that it started, quite ironically, on American Independence Day, that night it rained heavily. I know so because it rained heavily in the UK, London. The rain was so heavy, it was like all night. Literally, I could hear it dripping, and I did a video about how it was very calming, like you could sleep in that rain. So it was a really, really heavy rain. However, the rain was too much in America, and it seems to have caused a flood in Texas. So, me being an investigative journalist, I decided to do a bit of research on why the flood was so heroic. So, I mean, so ferocious and massive. Like, why did it like do that? And I had a look at first of all, I inquired about the name of the river, Guadalupe River. For those who don't know, the Spanish named it after the um, Our Lady of Guadalupe. There was a sighting of the Virgin Mary, um, and a native person somewhere in Mexico, or no, Guadalupe, had a vision of Virgin Mary, and they named the river the Spanish, because at that time the Spanish were the invaders, the colonizers of that particular part of Texas. And so they named it after the Marian apparition in South America. They named it Guadalupe. So that was one thing I recognized the name. The Guadalupe is an amazing image that was left on the native Indians' shell of the Virgin Mary. And yeah, and she's like brown, beautiful. So yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind. And then I started to do some research because I feel like in that region there was a blood, like a massacre of wiping out the native Indians. So I did a research, and there was two types of native Indians. The bigger one, which are called Karankawa Indians. Now these Karankawa Indians, I'm going to share the screen. Yeah. This is what they look like. As you can see, they're a lot larger, taller, have dark hair, and they're reddish brownish people. This is what they look like. Beautiful people, Native Americans. So these are the particular tribes, and that was their territory. So Apache were there, such. Painting Karankawa Native Americans by Frank Ware. Look at them weaving. They're like a little village. And they lived, and this is the banks of the Guadalupe River, which, yeah, the Karankawa. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight about this particular tribe because I feel like, when Westerners go into a country and invade it, they always leave the blood massacre and genocide of the native brown population. They always wipe that, like they pretend as if they never existed, and when they create a genocide, their history is just erased. But really, these reddish brownish people, there's a history in that location. So they were wiped out. They were almost wiped out. Thousands of Native American Indians were killed in that particular region, and it was the bloodthirsty Spanish. And that's how they end up invading countries. They murder the natives, and reclaim the land as if it's theirs, and that's the history. But Mother Nature has a way of remembering what was done in the past, and I want to talk about the so-called these people had a genocide committed on them by the Spanish settlers, and we know the Spanish were ruthless, ruthless colonialists, um, very bloodthirsty, and yeah, and at the end of the day, they're white, so and it makes and I feel like a lot of these Latinos with the Spanish blood and the Native American dominated blood, a lot of them are racist because they carry that Spanish blood. And I feel like colonialism has really affected them as well because that fusion of the hateful Spanish and their native people combined makes them a very fiery people, I think. I'm not saying all, but I can see where the racism will come from because it would come from the colonial, the dominator, and even, do you know what I mean? Like, it's quite sad. So that's where you see it from. And these are the original people that were, wiped out. So I'm just going to read you a bit about this so-called genocide that took place. And it was a war, the Karankawa Spanish War, 1778 to 1789. So this Native American tribe, they didn't have no weapons, they didn't have any like arms in terms of weapons, like guns. All they had was bow and arrow, and they were clearly amazing warriors to be fighting from 1778 to 1789. So it clearly shows how strong they were. But obviously the Spanish had gunpowder and guns, so that's how they ended up beating them. But it just shows you how fierce these people were. So let me tell you. In March 1778, deep in the Karankawa territory on the Texas Gulf Coast, a Coapite Indian named Joseph Maria approached 5 armed European sailors. The Coapite spoke perfect Castilian Spanish to a marine he recognized, Cristobal Gomez, and inquired about their presence on his land. Gomez had once endured a 10-year stint as a private at the nearby fort of Nuestra Senora de la Horta de la Bahia and knew the Indian leader well. He explained that he and his companions needed a guide. Their ship had run dangerously low on provisions and they meant to travel to La Bahia to resupply. Gomez had no knowledge that the Spaniards had imprisoned Joseph Maria mere days earlier. The Indian had escaped and sought vengeance. For 3 days, cannons on Captain Luis Antonio Andre vessel bellowed as a beacon for Gomez and the 4 other missing sailors. The men remained unresponsive. 2 Karankawa brothers, however, appeared on the shore and approached the ship in a dugout canoe, because they used to use little dugout canoes. Love it. When Andre called out to the duo, one of the Indians answered back in fluent Castilian Spanish. He said that Don Luis Cazarola, the commander of La Bahia, had tasked him with aiding any endangered vessels on the coast. A relieved Andre welcomed the pair aboard. Both Indians quickly endeared themselves to the crew by distributing fresh meat. They gave their names Joseph Maria and Mateo and warned Andre that other Karankawas had become hostile towards Spanish, but that they would track down the missing sailors before they met harm. While entertaining the brothers, Captain Andre sent 5 men ashore to collect oysters. By nightfall, these men also disappeared. With 10 mariners unaccounted for, only 6 sailors remained. Captain Andre, his son, teenage son, the ship's pilot and navigator, and an unnamed cadet, and a 14-year-old Maya crew member. On the morning of March 20th, 1778, 4 days after Gomez and his compatriots went missing and around 12 hours after the sailors sent to collect oysters and vanished, Joseph Maria and Mateo canoed back to Andre's vessel, accompanied by 10 Karankawas. So that's these reddish people. Joseph Maria promised Captain Andre that his men ashore were safe. In the midst of these reassurances, the other Karankawas went into the vessel's hold, seized the ship's weaponry, and shot everyone on board save for the young Maya mariner, Thomas de la Cruz. So it was an ambush, whom Joseph Maria enslaved. The Karankawas then threw the corpses into the water and looted the ship. They absconded with an abundance of supplies ranging from rafts to rifles, then ignited Andy's craft, turning it into a blackened husk at Matagorda Bay. Known as the Andre Massacre, this incident, when the Spaniards learned of it a year later, set off a decade of intense conflict between the Karankawas and their would-be colonizers. This article is a narrative history of that conflict, the little-known Karankawa-Spanish War. It has two primary purposes. The first is to uncover the main actions attempted by the Spaniard against the Karankawas as genocidal by documenting three major attempts of annihilation led by the Asanze de Meses, Dominica, Cabello Robles, and Niccolo de la Math. The second purpose is to show how the attempted annihilation acted as a mechanism for various Karankawa tribes to consolidate into a more unified body. In the process of achieving these goals, this piece will also demonstrate how Native Americans familiar with the Spaniards' custom and language acquired advantages for themselves and their tribe, and how shipwrecks served as a means of bypassing typical web of trade for the Karankawas. By the end of the 18th century, raids such as the one on Captain Andrew vessel were commonplace. Lacking consistent and direct European trading presence, Karankawas viewed shipwrecks as a valuable commodities. Obtaining goods in this way bypassed Indian middlemen who hawked their wares at the extortionate prices. Well, that's really interesting. And yeah, just wanted to do a quick video. So very, very interesting, as you can see.